Hello again. Now, where does this leave us in theology? Because this is about the two-legged theology series, this time with respect to the rapture. You've seen the two legs to it as far as angels and humans. That's two legs. Corporate and individual maturation. That's two legs. Both of those are missed by theology. Theology's been busy hopping on one leg. Okay, but there's another two legs that also gets hotly debated for centuries now. And those two legs actually fit together, but they think that they don't. The two legs are preterism. Go look it up on the internet. Preterism. And dispensationalism. And it's not only dispensationalism, but largely. Go look that up on the internet. Dispensationalism. You should be able to spell that. Now, these are two camps in theology that have been going on really since the Reformation. The preterists like to say that dispensationalism was invented in the 19th century. That's not true. But you pretend, for the sake of argument, that you didn't know. What you need to do always with anything is just go check with the Bible, right? Now, let's do that. Daniel 9. Daniel 9's a big kicker here. The preterist interprets Daniel 9 as having already been fulfilled. Now, there's different flavors of preterism. Some say it's partly fulfilled, some say it's not fulfilled at all. Okay, and then the dispensationalist says, no, it's future. Alright? Now, the truth is, this is so cute. I could kill myself for not noticing this sooner. The truth is that both sides are right. Because, two legs, there are two, count them, two tribulations in the Bible. Okay, and they are due to what we just saw in parts 1 through 4, this corporate maturation hanging Chad in a contract that was supposed to end with Israel. Okay, basically what happened was that Daniel 9:26c, go look it up, is about the temple being destroyed, and until the end there will be a flood. It means a flood of troops. Alright, go look it up in the Hebrew and the Greek. It's talking about the end will come with a flood of troops. And that's when Suntello, which is in Daniel 9:24, gets completed. So, now think, this isn't really hard to understand. Israel was supposed to be the last. It was supposed to all come to a head in 4200, year 4200 from Adam's fall. But Israel rejected Christ. Okay, but the prophecy was in Daniel 9:26 that the temple would be destroyed and the end would come with a flood of troops. What, doesn't God keep his promises? Was he inaccurate? No, because the original schedule was 57 years were supposed to follow. Okay, but the 57 years, you'll notice, God's very precise, isn't listed as 57 years there. It was understood because that's the Mosaic law with Passover plus Pentecost. Okay, but it's not forecast as actually having to occur that way in Daniel 9:26. But what is forecast? The temple's going to be destroyed and the end will come with a flood of troops. So that's why you have the tie-up with Matthew 24 and Luke 21. Luke 21 is the most telling about this, where the Lord says the times, plural, of the Gentiles, plural. Times, two. Okay? He's talking about tribulation there. And the preterist says, well, he's talking about tribulation there. It's over now, because the temple's destroyed in 70 AD. No. There are two. Why? Because the Lord is goes to the cross in 30 AD instead of 37 AD, which was his deadline. I'm presuming by now that by the time you finish looking at this, that you have paid some attention to my web pages that talk about this in much more detail. So I'm just trying to cover it rapid fire. He was supposed to die at 37 AD. He was rejected 29 AD, almost a year to the day. That's when he says Matthew 16:18. Look at the context. You'll see the date. And so in 30 AD, Passover, a year later, on true Passover rather than nominal Passover. Nominal Passover was 4 days earlier because the calendar wasn't intercalated by the Jews that year. That's a big point that John makes very sarcastically in John 19. Okay, so the Lord is executed 7 years in advance of his own deadline. He meets the condition by then. But Israel did not. That's your big corporate hanging chad. Okay, but we have this prophecy in Daniel 9 that says the temple's got to be destroyed and you got troops and they're going to stay there. Okay? You got an abomination, in essence, occurring because the temple's destroyed. Now, grammatically, Daniel 9:27 is like this other hanging chad. When does it begin? What was supposed to begin 57 years later. But because of Israel's rejection, it doesn't begin 57 years later. Instead, you get church inserted. All right, but then the historical trends that have to characterize our time have to be the same as Daniel 9:26, after the temple's destroyed, because we're not supposed to be here. So that creates 2 times. That's why the Lord says in Luke 21, times of the Gentiles. 2 times. 2. Right? And that means it's like 2 tribulations. Okay, but one of them is 7 years long for sure, but the other one has no set deadline. If Israel had accepted Christ, it would have been just the 7 years. They would have gone on. Daniel 9:27 would have occurred. Okay, in the last 7 of the 57 years. But Israel rejected. So now that's where we come in, with no set time limit. And that's why every generation is the rapture generation, potentially. Because as we just saw in part 4, it depends on corporate maturation. It doesn't depend on historical events. And the historical trends, Revelation 6 through 19, feeds into Daniel 9:26. The historical trends are the same. Because any generation can be the rapture generation if we mature. So it's always been the end times. Now, preterism derives a lot of its one-legged concepts from valid things. All right, the temple really was destroyed in 70 AD. By 70 AD, the Jews and everybody else were like, hello, it was supposed to happen. Book of Hebrews comes out 68 AD when Paul is executed. You can see that from Hebrews 13:23. Okay, because Timothy was released at the end of 2 Timothy. Timothy was asked to bring Mark with him to go see Paul, who was about to be executed at that point. So how could Timothy be released from Roman prison if he hadn't done what Paul asked him to do? Okay. And apparently, I'm not sure about this, but apparently Peter was executed soon after that. But that's another story. I want to stick to the point here. The point is that by 70 AD, everybody was getting pretty jaded. All right? They expected it to happen in 70 AD. That was the forecast. All right? Because that would have kept to the old timeline if the Jews had accepted him. The church didn't mature. Okay, so 70 AD comes and goes. And then here's John coming up, a generation later, writing 1 John. And you can prove 1 John was written in the 90s AD. Preterists don't do their homework too well there. Because John makes certain references to things that were happening then, like the change in the equites, that in Caesar's household that's alluded to in Revelation 4, because he's using this kind of honor chivalry nomenclature, which was just getting started then. And then also John is using mime a lot. He's using tableaus. And that was something very popular in Domitian's day to ridicule Christians. Okay. And you should be able to find that somewhere on the internet.